What's up, guys? George Bolecki here with Foxborough Rush. But hey, check out the latest episode of Boston has entered the chat. Travis Thomas and myself run through everything going around Boston sports. Most importantly, Ethan and Jason, our guys, break down the biggest surprise in sports. Most shocking moment of the weekend. John Cena pairing up with The Rock, turning heel. Yes, what am I talking about? Well, check out Boston has entered the chat to find out all that's happening in WWE, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get to Foxborough Rush. What's up? What's happening?
Yeah.
George Bolecki here with Travis Thomas.
Woo!
NFL Combine weekend is done.
Woo!
Arm measurements are in.
Woo!
Not so much for Will Campbell camp.
Oh.
They were hoping for tackle numbers to come from him. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about Will Campbell, the arm measurements, what that means for the Patriots, not just picking at 4, but their overall offseason approach at left tackle. Speaking of that approach at left tackle, we're going to sift through all the reports that came out of Combine weekend from the awesome people at The Athletic, the Boston Herald, Mass Live, what they all have been hearing. We're going to lay it out for you guys, and we're going to tell you what we think and what that means. And Sean McGuire of Nesson.com stops by to talk some studs and duds, which has an effect, especially on the wide receiver group the Patriots should target. Trev, let's get right into it, my man.
Come on.
What's your wingspan? I got to find this out.
Listen, I'll be honest with you.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'3", but
used to be 6'4".
But probably now I'm 6'2". I've always been 6'3", and I'm shrinking. But when I played sports, I had a football coach tell me, he's like, you're not fast enough to play receiver. I was playing receiver, and we ran the ball, George.
Yeah, there you go.
So a lot of blocking. I was like a red zone target. He's like, you got to give this receiver stuff up. Your arms are too short. He's like, you're tall, but you have a small wingspan. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, bro. He's like, you need to focus more at safety, because I played two ways, but I didn't care about safety. I could tackle, but I couldn't cover. He's like, you need to put more time in safety, because your arm length or lack thereof and your slow speed, it'll never work a receiver. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, bro. I'm the next T.O. So I've always in my brain, like, you know what? Those short arms did me in. And here we go. Will Campbell, Mr. T-Rex arms himself.
Well, I wouldn't call it T-Rex arms. I would call it T-Rex wingspan at least, though. But yeah, so these are the measurements that came out about Will Campbell. 6'5", 320, 32 and 5/8 inch arms.
Okay.
Not too small.
All right.
Wingspan, though, 77 and 3/8 inch wingspan.
Uh-oh.
And this is what's interesting. So Mark Daniels of MassLive.com does a tremendous job reporting on the Patriots all the time. But here's what he put out of, I don't think these numbers are a surprise. I was told the Patriots view Will Campbell as a tackle with the understanding that if length became an issue, he'd easily move to guard. Lots of fans of Campbell inside Gillette. So that's after the measurements. What was interesting was before the measurements were taken, Mark Daniels put in a report, the Patriots see Campbell as a tackle, arm measurements be damned. Basically, the Patriots walking back what they first said to Mark Daniels, that shows how shocked they were by how minuscule the wingspan is.
Right.
And everyone's going, all right, wait, what? Like 77, let me give you guys context real quick, okay?
All right.
So Will Campbell is 32 and 5/8 inch arms. And when I was hearing they could be sub 33-inch arms, I'm going, well, Rashawn Slater has 33-inch arms. Rashawn Slater, 6'4", 305.
Stud.
So Will Campbell, just like Rashawn Slater, is a stud, right? Yeah, coming out of D1. His wingspan is 80 and 1/8 inch wingspan. Tristan Wirfs, the best left tackle in the game, I've said since day one. 80 and 2/8 inch wingspan. Penei Sewell, 80 and 7/8 inch wingspan with 33 and a quarter inch arms.
Okay.
Also, Wirf's arms are 34 inch. So I was like, well, 33 is a cutoff because that's Rashawn Slater, right?
Yeah.
But look at this. Peter Skoronski, career left tackle in college, just like Will Campbell. Wingspan, 79.5 inch wingspan. Joe Tooney, 79 inch wingspan.
Okay.
Bumped from tackle to guard right away.
Yeah.
Gray Zabel, career left tackle, 77.5 inch wingspan. He has a longer wingspan than Will Campbell's, who's 3/8 inches.
Right.
All those guys, the last three I read off, they all became guards. They were tackles that became guards. Mark Daniels putting that out. Patriots are saying, oh, all right, well, we're a fan of him, but
he's a guard, bro.
That's a guard.
That's a guard. You've said it from the beginning. Credit to you.
My viewpoint stays the same, and we're going to get into it later, of what the reports are coming out. They want to swing big. It's all eyes on Ronnie Stanley, which it should be.
Yes.
My viewpoint has been he could be a good tackle or a great guard.
Elite, right?
And even Sean McGuire and I will talk about that in about 15 minutes as well. of a comp, which is a Zach Martin. Of you could have that all-pro guy there for 10 years.
Sure.
Can help out.
Yeah.
That's still my viewpoint on him. Zach Martin went 14th overall.
Right.
Will Campbell at 4th, it's rich, man.
It's a reach for a guy who could be an elite guard, has the tools to be just that. And then essentially, is this fair or disrespectful to say he would be a spot left tackle? Like
he could be
a versatile guy, which
like
you need.
Mike Onwenu,
right?
Played
like
right tackle when you need it.
You're rebuilding a line, right?
Joe Tooney played left tackle for the Chiefs at the end of their Super Bowl run.
But it's a spot. It's a spot thing. It's not a. It's not a bookend guy.
Yes.
So, is that? I mean, is this draft, George, so depleted of top-notch talent, blue chip, if you will?
Yeah.
That it's not a reach to take someone like that at 4? Like in a more talented draft, you would say, well, why would you take that player at 4?
Yeah.
And maybe not a top-heavy draft. Does it make more sense? Could you make the case because of the total embodiment of this draft, what you're getting cumulatively in this draft? Does it make more sense to take a Will Campbell at 4? I mean, I think these are the debates that will be had at Patriot Place, right? This is the stuff that they'll be talking about.
Yeah.
Personally, man, I hate to sound like Bill Belichick, but this just feels like the ultimate just trade back draft, doesn't it? Am I wrong, George?
Again, they swing big. If they get Ronnie Stanley,
everything changes, right?
I think they could still end up getting Will Campbell for this reason, especially if they trade back. Now, all right, so it could go one of two ways.
So not at 4.
This is a big convo, and I like you point this out. No. So to your answer, if they get Ronnie Stanley, I don't think they would take Will Campbell at 4. If they still want him, they'd trade back to 6 or 7 and take him.
Okay.
And then you have your left tackle for the next 3 years, and then your left guard for the next 10.
Okay,
and then
time out. If they do that in this scenario, I want to keep you here.
I have 2 seconds.
If they do that, why would you take Will Campbell when you go a different direction if you're trading back a Tyler Warren or someone else?
Bingo. So Avenue A is trading back and just reframing your entire offensive line.
Yeah.
Think about it like this. Mike Vrabel said, I build my offense around the most important player. You got to protect Drake May, right?
Right.
Elliot Wolf said, every hit Jacoby Brissett and Will Campbell took, I felt responsible for.
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel wants to build this team in his vision, which is in the trenches. Toughness. And he said, Eagles be damned. Yeah. That's how you win.
Yeah.
You win at the line of scrimmage. You have guys that affect the quarterback on your defensive side and guys that protect the quarterback on your offensive side.
Okay.
That's how they view this. So I wouldn't be shocked for them to just completely revamp the entire offensive and defensive line. And that's why they could still go with the Will Campbell, even if they trade back.
Okay.
And then if you accrue multiple second-round picks,
right,
that's when you get your receivers.
You do that later.
Jaden Higgins.
Okay.
Jalen Noel.
All right.
Xavier Restrepo. Right?
Or some of these tight ends.
Jalen Royals. Trey Harris.
Right.
Avenue B.
Yeah.
You get Ronnie Stanley. You trade back. You stay top 8.
Okay.
And you take a Tyler Warren, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
So there are multiple avenues to this. What a lot of it is, they're going to be faced with either Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks at number 4. And let me share you Kelvin Banks measurables.
Okay.
6'5", 315, 33.5-inch arms, 84 and 3/8 wingspan.
So he's got the tackle
everything
measurements.
And I think something that was awesome too was the athleticism that Will Campbell measured with, though.
Yeah.
Was off the charts. He hit over 20 miles per hour in his 40-yard dash.
Woo.
He had blazing speed.
Big boy.
And he hit the measurables you see from a Trent Williams and a Tristan Wirfs.
Huh.
Now, those guys are tackles, and it's from the 33rd team. Will Campbell's second 40 of 4.98 puts him on the short list of athletic offensive line prospects since 2010 to record a sub 540 yards and have 30-plus inch broad jump at 315 or more pounds. Will Campbell, Tristan Wirfs, Trent Williams. Tristan Wirfs and Trent Williams are athletic freaks.
Yeah, they are.
Athletic freaks.
Yeah.
Will Campbell is that too. But when it comes to having 77 and 3/8 inch wingspan, that is such a far outlier. If it was 79 and a half, maybe like, all right, it's sub 80, you can make it work. That matters because if you don't have that outstanding frame that a Trent Williams does, if you don't have the wingspan that a Tristan Wirfs does, if you don't have the wingspan that a Rashawn Slater does, because what that does is it makes it hard for guys to get around you. You may not have the long arms to put your hands on them first,
right?
But at least you have the length with the wingspan for it's difficult for them to get around you. And that matters with edge rushers. You need to redirect them. You just need to slow them down for 3 seconds. Baseline of that. Will Campbell has the footwork to mirror them.
Yeah.
Kind of gets off balance at times. So does Kelvin Banks. He has athleticism to mirror them. But there are parts where you just have to have the length, the frame, and Will Campbell doesn't have that. He has the athleticism, he has the experience, he has the leadership, he has the mother effer in them. He doesn't have the dog, he's a mother effer.
He is.
But that is such a big outlier. When you're picking 4, Trav, you need to not lose the draft with your first round pick. You need to win it.
Sure, I agree.
And at 4, you can lose if you take Campbell.
Well, think about this. I mean, without Drake May, this is last season's one of the worst drafts you've ever seen. So I agree with you there. You better win that first round pick. Let me ask you this, because you've had Will Campbell over Kelvin Banks this whole time. However, now that the combine has passed, it sounds to me a little bit hearing you talk like Banks has sort of, if nothing else, gained a bit on Will Campbell. Is that fair to say? Or are you still – just throw the number 4 pick out of it. Just pure evaluation here, George, GM George style. Did Banks close the gap, or you still have Campbell a grade above him? Because it sounds to me like he's closed the gap hearing you talk.
If anything, Will Campbell shortened it. Kind of gave up his lead.
Damn. Okay.
So that's what's interesting. The Kelvin Banks convo, we'll get into that too in just a bit. Because also, you don't hear Kelvin Banks connected to the Patriots a lot.
No, you don't.
But the one thing I wonder is that, sure, the Patriots went into this saying, hey, our measurements be damned, he's a left tackle. And then they come out and go, you know what, we recognize that the lack of length could mean he has to move to guard, but we'll live with it. Right? They say that. And then Kelvin Banks has a wingspan of 84 inches.
Man.
Draft season's also lying season. And I wouldn't be surprised for the Patriots to try to drive up the stock of a Will Campbell. If you could trade back, get more picks, get the offensive lineman you like in a Kelvin Banks, or trade back, get picks, and get the weapon you want in a Tyler Warren. But if you drive up Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell's stock, or teams that need a tackle will trade up and take them, then that just helps you. You need that, because if teams are sitting back and going, we'll take whoever falls to us. If it's Kelvin Banks, if it's Josh Simmons, Josh Connerly, Arante Ursary, Kelvin, if it's all these guys, then there's not going to be the trade market. I think right now the Patriots are just trying to drive up the stock of a Will Campbell, and they're trying to kind of play games within the games of it all in Indy.
I am concerned going into the draft if you haven't addressed the offensive line in free agency. Does that make sense? They are going. You have to get me something.
Yeah.
If you get me a Ronnie Stanley, and then I'm going in the draft and I'm hearing trade back for weapons, I'm fine with it. If you don't get, or let's just say you don't address offensive line and you strike out in terms of free agency for offensive line, you're going in this draft, and your best option is a Will Campbell at 4, you are screwed.
Yep.
I'm sorry. And I'm sure Will Campbell will be a fine offensive lineman in this league. I think he'll be an excellent guard. But, it is almost paramount. It is like panic room stuff. You got to hit that panic button if you're the Patriots. You must. Now, don't get it wrong. You need to address the offensive line in both free agency and draft. But I think what George has been saying over time here, even though I do tune him out a lot, I have listened to, if you can solidify the offensive line, solidify it in free agency, then you do clearly have all the chips at the table with that 4th pick. You can trade back. You can go weapons.
Yeah.
You can still address offensive line. But I think being beholden to an offensive lineman here at number 4 is not a good sign if you're the Patriots. If you go into the draft and you're picking at 4th and you have the same damn line that you had, you're screwed. You're screwed.
They have $126 million in cap space.
You better address it.
They cannot. And so what goes into the play, and we'll get into it in about 20 minutes, but everything that's happening, it still sounds like it's going to be Carter, Hunter, Ward in the top 3.
Okay.
Shedeur Sanders falls to 4. The Jets need a quarterback. Maybe they trade up.
Yeah.
You go back to 7. Sure, you're giving your division rival a franchise quarterback, but it's the Jets. You're going to beat their every time you match up with them anyway.
Sure.
You go from there. But first, before we get to that conversation, and before we get and bring in Sean McGuire of NESN.com, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to check out NESN's daily sports podcast, Boston Has Entered the Chat. We talk about all the trending sports news in Boston and around the country, available on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Twitch, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. He's Sean McGuire of NESN.com joining the show now. Sean, you got some studs and duds we want to talk about from the NFL Combine weekend. Let's start with the biggest name. Who jumped off the most at you that you think the guy that, did the most for himself after testing at the Combine out in Indy?
Yeah, and I kind of look at this, obviously a little bit from a Patriots perspective, so I'll kind of start there. But I just think the Iowa State receivers, so that's Jaden Higgins, that's Jalen Noel, those guys really impressed. I'll start with Higgins. His overall score ranked 4th among wideouts who participated. His athleticism score ranked 5th. And, you kind of get down to the nitty-gritty numbers, 4.47 40-yard dash. Vertical was 39 inches. Broad jump was 10 foot 8 inches. So don't want to get too bogged down in those numbers. And so to the point that we start to glaze over and everything like that. But same thing with Jalen Noel. He really 4.39 40-yard dash, vertical jump almost 42 inches. Another really impressive 3-cone drill. So those guys, I think specifically, they're probably still not, day one. Certainly they're not on the board for the Patriots at number 4 overall. I'm not trying to say that, but, they look like, value when you get to the second, when you get to day 2. And, just based on the Elliott Wolf comments that we heard from last week, right before the Combine, I think it's very fair to think that the Patriots are going to be targeting those wideouts on day 2. Elliott Wolf kind of talked about the meat of the class being in the middle rounds. So I just think, day 2 with the second round, with the third round, you could see a few of those guys, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, looking like potential Patriots targets.
This is why I call George, lovingly, I call him GM George, because he's been all over this. And Elliott Wolf,
Yep.
I guess, is echoing kind of what George has been saying. Most Patriots fans that I talk to and I see on message boards and they put in the comments on our videos, they want Ted McMillan out of Arizona, but that's obviously a first-round grade on a receiver.
Yeah.
You bring up Jaden Higgins. Elliott Wolf talks about the meat of the wide receivers late in the draft. George talks about Jaden Higgins so much till he's blue in the face. So I'm just going to ask you here, S. Mizzle. What's the difference, in your opinion, from a Jaden Higgins in a Josh McDaniels system as opposed to a Ted McMillan? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, and just to touch on the Elliott Wolf comment, when I heard that, I first thought of Ted McMillan, just because it sounded like they aren't totally overly enthused about those early round wideouts, and I think he's the first one, right? There was a report to come out today from the Boston Herald, I believe, that said, if the Patriots trade back, that McMillan could be a potential target for that. So we'll see. Maybe they value him more at 8 or 10 than they do at 4. But I'm not exactly sure. I know the question was more related to McDaniel's offense and that sort of thing. I just think it comes back to the overall value of what you're getting in the draft. And I think the value when it comes to a Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel is probably greater than a Ted McMillan.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at Ted McMillan, the comp, I've said it since day one, for him, that's a guy that could be Drake London.
Yep.
I just don't see him reaching that ceiling, though. I don't think he does anything tremendous. And if you're going to take someone at 4, the 4th overall pick, that's like a Jamar Chase for the most recent example, or that's in a Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., guys with such higher ceilings than a Drake London who went 8 overall. But like we see in this draft, the difference between literally the top 2 prospects and the rest is night and day. If you're picking at 4, you want a guy that is going to be a blue chip player, because how it stands for the Pats right now, you look at the entire roster. Who are the 2 guys you go, you know what, they're not moving. We're holding on to them. That's who you build around. Drake May, Christian Gonzalez, and it stops there. Yep. Exactly. And that's it. I loved that you point out Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel improved me the most. I love Jaden Higgins, 6'4", 215, really big slot, ran a 4 sub 4 540, was really good with his vertical leap as well. I think 39 inches. Like, he tested better than Michael Pittman, but with the same build. But Jalen Noel had the highest vertical out of all receivers. He's 5'10", 195. That's like Josh McDaniels written all over him. And that's a guy that has a complete route tree as well. So those are two guys I think were big studs. One you got to point out to, Sean, if you think about it, is Arante Ursary. Just the fact that he ran a 5.01 140. That is the fastest time for someone that's 6'6", 330 since 2003.
Goodness.
That's a guy that could get downfield. And I think one combo to have on like both sides of it too, what Will Campbell accomplished, yes, his arm length, it's more of his wingspan. His wingspan concerns the hell out of me. And we talked about that earlier in the episode.
Yep.
But for him to reach a top speed of 20 miles per hour, just over that, that's a guy that, as a guard, can get to the second level. In any type of run blocking scheme, can get out and pull or just open up holes on the inside. Like, he's going to be such a good guard at the next level. Fourth overall, I don't love it. What's about you, Sean? I know you were texting me about Arante Ursary too. You want to touch on him? What jumped out at him about you? Was it the 40-yard dash as well, or was it other testing numbers?
I think it's got to be the 40-yard dash. I mean, the stat that you just said, that's 6'6", 331 pounds, and he's running 5.01 in the 40, and he covered the first 10 yards in 1.75 seconds. I mean, that is ridiculous. Like, just imagine that sort of man coming at you, on those sorts of pulls and all that sort of stuff. It's just crazy. So I think he was. I was going to say him as well. He's got to be one of the studs that come out of today. And some things with the Will Campbell, George, I agree with you. I think the length at this point, it certainly doesn't ease any nerves. I think, if he was to come in and he was to hit that, 33 inches, and we can debate how important 3/8 of an inch is, and we will do that over the next 2 months or whatever. But the fact is, that 33-inch number is a number that league execs and scouts and everyone look at, and they that's like, it's like a threshold sort of thing. So I just think with maybe Will Campbell, that sort of thing, causing a little bit more concern. You got someone like Ursary comes in, and you just think, wow, this kid could be a stud. If maybe we take someone earlier at 4, and then we trade back in the first round and get him at 25 or whatever the case may be, and at this point maybe he's not there, but that's I think those are all conversations we're going to have just because of how impressive he was during the combine.
If you want the latest for the Patriots heading into the draft and free agency and everything happening with Drake May and Mike Vrabel, check out Foxborough Rush every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, where new episodes drop 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you get your podcasts and wherever you watch as well.
All right, Esmizzle, I want to invite you to give us your duds, but before we go there, I'm trying to pick up what you're putting down here. Listen, it sounds to me, you and George are saying the same things. Will Campbell looks like he can be an elite guard in this league potentially, but I'm also hearing maybe spot starter at left tackle, not necessarily a bookend tackle. Is that what I'm getting from you definitively? And what's your gut say at number 4? Like, do you think the Patriots at number 4 will take T-Rex arms, Will Campbell, or are they going to go a different direction, trade back or go in a different direction?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the things you hear kind of before the combine, Dane Brugler talked about it, Daniel Jeremiah talked about it, and they both said that, I feel comfortable with starting him at left tackle, and if something happens down the road and, he proves that the length is, it's not effective or it's a cause for concern or whatever, then you move him then. And I kind of still feel like that's a fair way to look at it. Like, I think you do draft him. Certainly it would be better to trade down to 6, trade down to 8. I know a few of the mock drafts that George and Keegan have done have included that. And I think that would be a fantastic situation. If they could do that, that would be great. Obviously you have to have a team that comes up and tries to get to 4. But yeah, I don't know how concerned I can be over 3/8 of an inch when it comes to it, because so much of the stuff on tape and so much of the stuff that you see from and you hear from experts that are covering this stuff are he can do this for at least for the time being. Like, it does not make sense to draft him as a guard. It makes sense to draft him as a tackle. And if you have to kind of change some things down the line, you change some things down the line. And the Patriots just have so many holes on the offensive line that it's kind of like if you're going to get an all-pro at a position, you need such talent at this point that I don't think that's a bad way to go about it. So I think that answers your question, Travis. I'm certainly not like I'm caught like, tempering expectations sort of thing, maybe a little bit, but I'm not like, oh my God, you cannot draft him at 4.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. It's also, and we spoke about it earlier, and we'll also get into it later in this episode too, of the reports that are coming out from the combine too, is the Patriots are going to open up legal tampering period, swing big, and it's going to be all in on Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
They want to add 2 tackles, they want to add a guard, and they want to get better in the trenches. And with the top 5 pick, if you get a 10-year starter, all-pro caliber guard, and you just solidify a key part of this offensive line, and that also makes where Ronnie Stanley's 31 years old, whoever comes in at left tackle after him, if the Patriots get him, whoever comes in after him, like you're always going to have that all-pro guy right next to you. You're going to have a Zach Martin-esque type of guard playing next to you. I think that means a lot.
Wow.
It's not the arm length
George,
because
let me just jump in on that because I was thinking the exact same thing. I remember on draft night, and you'll make fun of this, when Jerry was deciding between Johnny Manziel and Zach Martin.
I remember.
And I was disappointed at the time, and I will say that Zach Martin turned out to be an absolute lock. And so if you can get that sort of, even interior play, if you can get that sort of thing for the next 10 years, I think you got to do it. Sorry to jump in, but as soon as you said Zach Martin, my blood started flowing.
He was just going to tell you that your boy Will Campbell has T-Rex arms, and Zach Martin never had that issue. Go ahead, George. That's what he's going to tell you.
Zach Martin ended up being a guard. Let me pull up his measurables. But to that point, and that's fine, that was a 16th overall pick.
Right.
This is the 4th overall pick. So the trade back does make sense. Arm length for Zach Martin, 32 7/8 inches. So just right there with Will Campbell as well. But it's not the arm length because Rashawn Slater is 33 inches on the dot, and I think he's the second best left tackle that you get in the entire league.
Yes.
But it's the wingspan because if you're going to be undersized on the arms, you have to be long where it's tough for guys to get around you. And that's an advantage for Arante Ursary, who has shorter arms than expected, but 6'6", that's such a big frame. 330, that's such a big frame. What worries me is Will Campbell's wingspan, and we spoke about it to open, was 77 3/8 inches. Like, you won't find any starting left tackle that has a wingspan that's short. Joe Tooney, 79-inch wingspan. Left tackle, moved to guard. Peter Skoronski, 79.5-inch wingspan. Moved to guard the second he stepped into the NFL.
Yep.
Gray Zabel, he's a left tackle at NDSU, 77.5-inch wingspan. That's what worries me. But again, if you have that guy, you have that all-pro that can mask a lot of deficiencies and helps out a team. What about for duds? Get away from the offensive line talk. Anyone, when you're thinking of weapons that, you were a guy you could see being a Patriot as you're looking at through that scope, and you were like, you know what, I want to see more from him, and he disappointed me.
Yeah, I think Tez Johnson probably is the first one
slow
to,
40.
kind of. Yeah, I mean, slow 4.5, 140, and he measured at 154 pounds. I mean, that's like that is a small human. I'm not exactly sure what Xavier Worthy is off the top of my head, but that's a small guy. And he came in, his 3-cone drill was really good. I believe it was the fastest of all the wideouts, 6.65, sorry, excuse me. But the guy comes in, comparisons to Tank Dell sort of thing. But I think you got to be concerned with the lack of size. His frame, 154 pounds, and if he's going to run a 4.51, I just think that's gotta get him on the dud category in here.
Yeah, and that's a guy, Xavier Worthy, I think was 175 coming in.
I got it right here. He's 5'11", 165, but to S. Measy's point, he runs like the wind.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
he set the record for a 40-yard dash. Right. If you're going to be that tiny, you got to make sure they can't catch you.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're going to be able to catch him. Yeah, that jumped out at me. I was just like shocked. I had to triple take it. A dud for me was a Caleb Johnson, where again, talking about slow 40 times, his 40 was a 4.57. Wasn't fantastic on the 10-yard split either. And for a running back that's seen as like RB3, RB4, I thought he could have helped himself out a lot this weekend. Not a natural pass catcher, not exceptionally fast, the agility isn't insane to me. It's just he doesn't do anything exceptional. So when you're looking at running backs, it's the old name, but I love Donovan Edwards, and he looked really good at the combine. I would rather wait 3 rounds and get a Donovan Edwards than I would to get a Caleb Johnson, say if I have to take him in the 3rd. So that's the one guy that you got to watch running backs for the Patriots that need to build that backfield out a little bit. Yes. And Caleb Johnson out of Iowa let me down with his combine performance.
Yeah, and I'll just keep it going. And this is a low-hanging fruit sort of thing, but I'm going to go with Gunnar Helm. And it sucks. I mean, you got to kind of feel bad for the kid. Twisted his ankle. He false started on the 40-yard dash, ended up twisting his ankle. So that's a pretty crappy way to start. And he finished the drills. So, that sort of thing. Football guys are going to love that. Finished the drills, didn't complain about it, all that sort of thing. But the numbers so obviously were impacted. What was it, like 4.84 40-yard dash, a 30-inch vertical. I mean, we're talking about a guy that I believe Dane Brugler had him as like the top 5 tight end. And, his score was at 10, his score was at 10 on the combine. And that's, some of the top guys didn't even perform and didn't even go out there and participate. So it stinks. Hopefully he'll be able to kind of rehab it and, heal before Texas Pro Day. But definitely one of those guys that kind of stuck out like, that's a crappy situation, but it is what it is.
I'm glad you brought his pro day up because I'm thinking, go ice up, son, and get ready for your pro day, and then give us some great numbers and watch his stock go to the moon. So maybe that's a guy you just kind of put on the wait and see list if you're the Patriots. I want to ask you this. This is sort of a big picture question, like a zoom out. Mm-hmm. As you looked at this entire combine, I'm going to throw this to both of you guys. I mean, what was the strongest position group overall? Because people say this isn't a top-heavy draft where there's these generational stud players, but it is, as I've heard it described, quote, a meat and potatoes draft. Like you can fill out your roster here. There are a lot of good, talented players, depth pieces, things of this nature. Yeah. So as you sort of look at the positions, if you want to rank them or just tell me one that stood out to you, we'll start with you, Esmeezy. What was a position that stood out to you from this combine overall?
Yeah, I hope it's not recency bias, but I'm going to go with the offensive line today on Sunday. And, we just talked a lot about Ursary. And I think another one that stands out, the Georgia center, Jared Wilson, he tested fantastic. That's another guy you kind of have seen floated to the Patriots in some mock drafts. Certainly a guy that, probably not even a day 2 pick, maybe early day 3. But, center, definitely a position of need for the Patriots. So I think that he was another one that stood out. And just, we talked a lot about the Will Campbell thing, but his arm length wasn't ideal. But, he tested all the agility stuff, all the speed stuff. He tested really well when it came to that stuff. I believe he ran the fastest 40 of any lineman today. I know it was a shade under 5 seconds. So I just think that there are a lot of, good offensive linemen when you get into those meat and potatoes rounds.
Yeah, I think for me, the position group jumped out the most was, if we're talking about meat and potatoes, as Elliot Wolf said, the meatier part of the draft are the receivers as the middle. But to see a guy like Jalen Noel finish first in bench press reps at 23 at his size. Like, he's not the biggest guy, but just show that strength, how well he performed in the shuttle, how well he performed in the 3-cone. Like, he was top 6 in both categories, led everyone in a vertical. And then also Dante Thornton out of Tennessee, 6'4", ran a 4.3 40. Like, insane. And then a big vertical too. His 10-yard split was insane. That's a guy that could be a 5th or 6th rounder, but that's going to have a really good wide receiver coach salivating to go out and get. Like Dante Thornton Jr., Miami Dolphins. For a guy like Mike McDaniels that always prioritizes speed and obviously has developed good wide receivers too, how do you not go out a guy like that where it's a 4.3 speed, it's Xavier Worthy's speed, but it's in the body of DK Metcalf. Like, not as thick, but to that point, I think wide receivers helped themselves out the most. Those are the guys that had to work out. They had to improve their stock. Mm-hmm. And there just isn't that clear-cut stud in all of this. Like, Emeka Egbuka is really good, but like that could be a 2nd, 3rd rounder in another draft. Luther Burden is the next Deebo Samuel, but could be a 2nd rounder like Deebo was.
Right.
Same thing with Ted McMillan of just a limited ceiling. I think the wide receivers overall themselves help the most. And the guys, I didn't want them to perform so well because I wanted them to fall to the Pats. But Jaden Higgins, that's going to be a 38th overall pick range for the Patriots. Jalen Noel could be in that range, or we could see them go very well. Like, put offensive line first round, and then it very well could go receiver. And then we could see them fill out depth from that point on.
I'm fine with that.
Right? But like it does, and again, we're gonna get into it. Is that the reports that have come out? Mike Vrabel doesn't care about who's been drafted when.
Yeah.
Jalen Polk, Layden Robinson, hello, wake up. They're going to draft guys at those positions. They want to get their dude. So I think receivers help themselves out the most.
I like the defensive ends. I don't. Esmeezy, you would know this more than me. I don't know his first name. His last name's Stewart from Texas A&M.
Shamar. That's my guy.
God.
He's insane.
Boy.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I watched his workout. There was a couple of
You don't
defensive
listen
linemen.
to me, T. I've been saying Shamar Stewart.
Listen, you know I do block out a lot of this stuff that you guys talk about, but I watched his workout, and I was like, that dude is the truth. There were a lot of defensive linemen that jumped out to me. This feels, again, outside of Abdul Carter and maybe Mason Graham, of course, but, it doesn't feel as top-heavy like with these stars. But it just felt like watching that defensive line group, like a deep defensive line class, too. That jumped out to me anyway.
Yeah, James Pierce helped himself a lot, too.
Yeah.
I mean, 6'5", 245, 447. He is – the ceiling isn't as high. Like, again, it's Abdul Carter and everyone else. But James Pierce right away is very pro-ready. He's a day one starter. Shamar Stewart's a project. He has to put all these tools and exceptional traits together.
Right.
James Pierce is a refined piece that'll drop into your defense right away. And James Pierce, Green Bay Packers, maybe Eagles if they don't trade away that first for Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
That's a guy that fits in those scenarios. He's Sean McGuire of Nesson.com. Sean, thanks for stopping by, talking Combine, my guy.
It was good to be with you guys.
And we talked good about the Cowboys. Shout out Zach Martin, 16th overall pick, became a legend.
When I get the chance to shed some light on something good that's happened for the last 10 years of the organization, George, I gotta make sure I do it.
And he wanted Johnny Football, George.
When I shook that Zach Martin's hand and my hand disappeared, I said, "My golly, have you ever tried to open up a mining shaft with these bare hands? Because you can do it, son. If you don't want to play football."
This is your fault, McGuire. This is all your fault.
And I say my hand was shaking tighter than a witch's yippee at that point of the day. I was like, I got to draft that boy. Don't ask me what a witch's yippee is because I don't know. But my grandma, my Meemaw, always told me about that.
Meemaw?
My Meemaw, rest in heavens, and led me to this day and age where I lead the Cowboys to the top of the. All right, I got to stop.
McGuire.
People are going to be like, "What's going on?" He's Sean McGuire. Sean, thanks for stopping by, my man.
All right, see you guys.
And make sure to stream the entire Sox season with Nesson 360 annual plan available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month paid annually. And for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit Nesson360.com to sign up today. Trav, you ever play the game Clue?
Of course.
Were you good at it?
No.
Me neither. But we're going to play it now.
All right.
So there's a lot of reports coming out from Combine Weekend.
That was terrible.
And it was between the team at the Herald, Mass Live, and the Athletic. So it's Andrew Callahan, Doug Kyde, Karen Garigian, Mark Daniels.
All do a great job.
And then also Chad Graff. Yeah, all of them do a great job. So we're going to play a little bit of let's connect the dots. Let's like Clue, Colonel Mustard murdered Travis Thomas in the break room with a banana.
Yeah, and then George avenged Travis's death. Woo!
Exactly.
I know you would.
I'd be ashamed. I'd be like, Trav went down getting murked by a banana?
Who did what?
Is it frozen? Okay.
Where's the stapler?
So here's one that was from Mass Live. Patriots see Travis Hunter as cornerback 1 and wide receiver 1.
Duh.
No.
What?
Travis Hunter's gone at 4.
Oh.
Yes. See? And I think that lays out that picture that, again, as we were talking about to start the episode, as we talked about with Sean, that's where you connect all the dots. And when you're looking at it, if we're going to have to part with the conversation, the Patriots could get Travis Hunter, I believe.
Yeah.
Because that's a guy that we've talked ad nauseum, and I've said he's a receiver. Excuse me, he's a cornerback, and you have him play money downs at receiver. 3rd down,
no problem.
4th down, red zone, red area, goal to go, right?
No problem.
But here's the beauty of it, Trav. If you're a team like the Giants and you take Travis Hunter, you need help at cornerback now, right?
Right.
You need help on defense. Then once you get your quarterback and you have Malik Neighbors, he could be a full-time receiver the following season.
Sure he could.
You can't pass up on that versatility. And if the Patriots are saying he's number 1, cornerback 1, and wide receiver 1, how do you not take him? Because a wide receiver 1 would go top 5.
Yeah.
So I don't think he'll be there at 4.
I think you're right. I hate it. Look, I'm in denial about it, but I think what you said is gospel. I think those of us who are obsessed with Travis Hunter as a Patriot, we're gonna have to let that go, because the worst thing that could happen. And look, I kind of feel like a jerk here for this, George, because I root for the kid. I really like him, the person.
Yeah.
But I have a confession. I'm like, Usher, these are my confessions. I was hoping he blew it at the combine. I was hoping with these interviews, he was just like, I do what I want. I was hoping he was a diva.
He was good at the podium.
He cussed people out.
Kept it short.
He blew all these teams away with how great his interviews was, and they all love him as a guy. He's gone. There's no doubt.
All right, here's the next one. Will Campbell and Mason Graham have fans in New England. This is both from Mass Live and the Boston Herald. Patriots are going to build out the line of scrimmage. I don't love Mason Graham at 4.
Me either. I don't love either at 4.
As Alex Barth came on and mentioned, I was like, that's genius. Yeah. Quinnen Williams, Marcel Darius, since 2011, are the 2 defensive tackles to go top 4 in the NFL draft. What does that translate to? Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Great players. Quinnen Williams, arguably the best defensive tackle in the game.
I do like him, yeah.
Fantastic player. Yeah. And again, I'm going to open the box really quick, and then I'm going to close it.
Sure.
I'm actually going to close Pandora's box. Quinnen Williams was the centerpiece of an elite Jets defense.
Yes.
With a good Jets offense and good skill sets.
Yes.
When they brought in an elite quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, at the time, it all made sense to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
So Quinnen Williams could have been the outlier getting picked top 4. Let me close Pandora's box.
Okay.
It didn't work out because of Aaron Rodgers.
Facts.
But yes, I hear that. What it is more of, there's a lot of fans of Will Campbell and Mason Graham. Everyone's a fan of building at the line of scrimmage. And those are 2 guys you can see trade back to 6.
Yes.
You could still maybe get Mason Graham at 6 or 7. Same thing with Will Campbell.
Yeah, that's where you and I have been in lockstep the whole time with both of these guys in particular.
Yep.
Is that, at 4, it feels a little reachy for either. Although, again, I'm going to be a broken record here. It depends what happens in free agency. George, I mean, if you address the trenches in free agency, although I want you to trade back from 4.
And we'll get to that, how they address the trenches.
If you took either one of these guys at 4, and I'm happy with what you did in free agency, both on the offensive and defensive line, then I could live with it. Who do you think would have a bigger impact, though, day one? Forget where they're drafted. Mason Graham or Will Campbell? Who would have the bigger rookie season impact? Day one, turnkey, let's go.
Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Now, both like the D-line and O-line were terrible, but you could get Christian Barmore back.
Right.
We're going to talk about it in a little bit.
There's other guys.
They could sign Milton Williams.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But this offensive line was terrible.
Yeah.
This offensive line was atrocious.
You're right.
So that's why I think it's a bigger day one. I like that question. Trav, you're going to like this one.
Okay.
Per Mass Live, if the Patriots trade back, keep an eye on Tyler Warren.
I love this.
Okay.
Now,
Why?
I need GM George.
Okay. I'm here for you. Whatever you need.
Where are we going to here? 10? 11? Like, what range, realistically, are we talking about? Because is he that good? Like, I like him. I like him.
Yes.
Are you taking him at 7 or 8?
Yes. I don't think you could go further back than 8.
I don't know.
I don't think you could. You don't want him at.
I want him 8. Feels.
Who else are you going to get at 8?
Is he that good, George?
Yes.
Because if we're talking 8, I need you to come in and win rookie. Like, you got to be Brock Bowers. And I don't think Brock Bowers went 8, did he? He was like 12.
Brock Bowers is a slot receiver. The Raiders actually like that. No, and he's a really good receiver. The Raiders, which is like, it sounds insane, but they could go Tyler Warren at 6. And then when they eventually get their quarterback, who knows? Because of Tom Brady, it's a much more serious franchise.
The Raiders could go.
Because you have a really good tight end.
Warren?
Yes. Brock Bowers is a wide receiver. He doesn't line up in line. And then, yes, you have a really good tight end.
That's scary.
Yes, exactly. So, but this is how it can go, where 1 through 4, Carter, Hunter, Ward, Sanders could all be gone.
Right.
The Jacksonville Jaguars at 5 are kind of that wild card. I can see them going Tyler Warren to help out Trevor
5?
Lawrence. But I think they could also go tackle.
Jeez.
But if you go back to 6 with the Raiders would go up to get Shedeur Sanders. Tyler Warren's there. If you trade back and go 7 with the Jets, or if you trade back to 8 with the Panthers, he could still be there. Because the Panthers need defense, the Jets need a quarterback, Vegas needs everything, the Jets need everything too. But yeah, if they trade back, keep an eye on Tyler Warren. To me, that says they stay top 8 or top 7.
I'm looking at a list now of tight ends who have gone top 10. since 2000. So I'm not going to go all the way back here.
Okay.
But there are some game-wrecking tight ends on this list. I like Ty Warren. I don't know if I like him that much. Like in my head,
Mr. Tyler Warren.
In my head, bro.
You're Mr. Tyler Warren.
I know. I don't think I'm willing to go. Like, I'm not taking him at 4, and I don't think I think I'm at 10, maybe 9, 10 range.
Kind of disappointed.
And he's so good, but I don't know if he's that. I don't think I'm there, George.
Yeah.
I really don't. All right, so Bowers, I was right. He went 13th. Pitts went 4 overall for the Falcons, and I'll just rattle off recent ones.
Yeah, Pitts went 4. Hawkinson went high.
Hawkinson went 8 in 19. Noah Fant went 20. So, yeah, there's no Eric Ebron all the way back to 2014 was 10. I'm telling you, these top 10 dudes really don't make that much of a splash. Hawkinson, obviously different, but he's not even with the same team.
Yeah, the only way a lot can change between now and then if, like, James Pierce helps out his stock a lot, Jalen Walker, Michael Williams would have made sense here, actually.
Sure.
Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan. Like, that's what can knock him back. But, again, it's who do you have there? How about this one? If the Patriots trade back, keep an eye on Ted McMillan from the Boston Herald.
Okay, so again,
lying season, remember.
This is
we could go Tyler, we could go Ted.
Yeah, but also what like let's define
never let them know your
what's
next
trade
move.
back mean? Right? Like if I'm getting Ted, I feel the same way about Ted as I do Ty Warren. I don't want him at 8. I'm sorry.
No, I don't want Ted at 8.
Like you've compared him to Drake London, and I get it because of the size, but I remember watching Drake London at USC and being like, yeah, that's a pro. This Ted guy, now,
he's good.
He's had some issues at quarterback. I'll give him that, and he still put up pretty good numbers. But maybe it's a knock on who he had at quarterback, but he didn't jump out the screen to me the same way as Drake London at SC did.
Yeah.
So I want to define trade back on some of this stuff. Ty Warren, 10, 11, 12, cool. Ted McMillan, same range, cool.
Yeah.
If we're talking 6, 7, 8, I still feel like it's a reach a little bit, George. That's just me.
He had Noah Fafita at quarterback. They've been together multiple
trash.
seasons. Yeah, it was a bad team.
That was trash.
Yeah, I just don't want Ted.
He still put up numbers,
You
though.
can get similar Ted McMillan output from a Trey Harris, a Pat Bryant. Trey Harris looked really good at the combine.
Yeah.
Not a fast 40, but that's not his game, and that's Ted McMillan, same thing.
Sure.
Or you could get a Jaden Higgins who has more top-end speed
You love
and
him.
can develop. I love him.
You do.
Last one on the draft.
All right.
I'm just going to put out draft viewed as top 10 players and then a big drop-off. So if the Patriots trade back, it's unlikely they'll go beyond 10. The Bears pick at 10. But let's get into what they're hearing about free agency.
Okay.
Ronnie Stanley, Milton Williams, Charvarius Ward, Chris Godwin are the top targets per the Boston Herald.
Okay. All right. Stanley, you had me at Stanley.
Who
I
are the
didn't
top
even
two
hear
on that
anyone
list?
else.
Ronnie
That's
Stanley,
it.
Milton Williams.
I want Stanley. Give him whatever he wants. Hell with it. I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to afford him. I really don't. I know they want to keep him. If he wants to be there and he wants to play with Lamar and he loves the culture, he's going to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't want to do that. And I hope he comes here to New England where they can pay him whatever he wants because that's the guy I want.
March 4th, that's Tuesday, is the deadline to designate a franchise tag. I think Ronnie Stanley, I don't think they can franchise.
I don't think so.
Patriots taking trenches first approach with cornerback and linebacker close behind in free agency per the Boston Herald.
Great.
Cool.
No problem.
How about this one? Patriots want to build in Vrabel's likeness, so building through the line of scrimmage on both sides per the Athletic.
Makes sense. I mean, this team didn't have an identity under Gerard Mayo. That was half of the issue. So if you're telling me overnight with Vrabel as your coach, it got tougher. And now if you're going to tell me the identity is toughness, we're going to run the ball, we're going to hit you in the mouth, and Drake May is going to be awesome, I'm with it.
We've gone through 3 reports for free agency. Ronnie Stanley, Milton Williams, trenches, and Vrabel's likeness. That means line of scrimmage. Top target to monitor is Milton Williams, who is seen as a good fit in Vrabel's system. Per Mass Live.
Violent.
That's one bad mother effer at defensive tackle.
It's a violent defensive tackle.
And you have Milton Williams and Christian Barmore in your B gap. Maybe Keon White. I don't know if he's a wide 9 type guy, but he can be a piece of you just always have a fresh interior defensive line. And there's a question mark around Christian Barmore.
Right.
I like that. Here's the next one. So this coincides with Milton Williams. Titans pass rusher Harold Landry is a natural Patriots fit. Some believe Landry's ultimately cut by the Titans per Mass Live.
Once we saw this report come out that he would likely be cut at some point, we knew. Vrabel's going to come and get him. That's a guy that's had a lot of productivity under him.
Yep.
I think it makes a lot of sense. By the way, just because I looked this up, Milton Williams is 25 years old, bro. Like, I need that, George.
Yeah. Give me a 4-year deal. 5th year is a void year. Yeah. And he just came off a monster season. Now, keep in mind, temper expectations. Milton Williams won't have Jalen Carter next to him.
Sure.
Won't have a Josh Sweat next to him either. So it's Christian Barmore's a lot different than Jalen Carter. How about this one? Unlike past off seasons, the Patriots won't hesitate to sign a player if a recent draft pick plays the same position. Per the Boston Herald, Layden Robinson, Jalen Pollock, Marte Mapu.
Yeah. God,
they're going to fill out that receiving room.
None of those guys are good.
And they're going to get a card.
You just named all these dudes who are not good.
I mean, they're all right. Here's another one. Vrabel mandates front office prioritizing toughness, demeanor, character as non-negotiables per the Boston Herald.
Thank you.
Then they followed that up. Mike Vrabel wants Jamian Sherwood, linebacker for the Jets, 6'2", 215, but quick. They're going to get smaller but faster up front and more violent.
Fine.
Yep. And last one. If offseason goes as planned, both offensive line and defensive line will be drastically different. That's from The Athletic.
Oh, well, don't we need that?
Ronnie Stanley, Patrick McCarry, maybe Trey Smith. Again, we'll see what the Chiefs do with him having the non-exclusive on him. And then on defensive line, Milton Williams, Harold Landry.
Well, can we get one of those James Pierce or Shamar Stewart dudes or Mason Graham dudes in there too?
Last one. Going O-line or D-line at number 4 seems likeliest option. Number 4 overall in the draft per The Athletic. Makes sense again.
Some of the names I just named.
Mason Graham,
right?
Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Shamar Stewart, maybe. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Biloxi. Thank you so much for you guys making us a part of your day. Make sure to catch new episodes of Foxborough Rush every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. For Double T and GB, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everyone.